The views and opinions of the hosts and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views of the management and staff of Guardian Radio.
Happy Saturday, Bahamas. I'm so happy to be live this week. Sorry, but last week was a bit under the weather. So happy to get into things today. Welcome to the forum. Your opportunity to get into the discussion and be a part of the conversation. Before we get into things, I just want to say a special thank you to the producer I see in the studio today. Thank you, Simba, for helping us out this weekend. I think you were supposed to be on last weekend as well. But so happy to have you in studio this week working along with us. Me and Simba go way back. I know Mr. Z, so we're happy that we out here doing something positive in life. So yeah, man. But I have a guest. He should be in studio shortly. He's going to help me through this conversation today. Today is all about BPL. Last week it was a challenge. This week it's a challenge, and I feel like they're still trying to gaslight us. But we can get into all that today. I got a few choice words for BPL and their senior leadership. But relative to today's show, you know how the forum operates. This is a show based on conversation. This is a show based on contribution. And today, our music is being provided through the album Rap Music by Killer Mike. Killer Mike, this album in particular is special to me because this is where we get the intro for the show from. The intro is Reagan. The intro and the outro is Reagan. And it's from this album. It's a 2012 album by Killer Mike. A ton of good tracks in it. You're going to hear some of it today. But as we get into the show, there's only one way to get into it. Our opening 15. We're going to focus on some of the top stories coming out of the country this week. Phenomenal job this past week, covering a lot of issues. To be clear, and I want to get straight into those stories. First story we have that we want to cover this week, the $265 million that seemed to just disappear. We don't know where it is. Well, I think we know where it is now. We have to just wait on the account of what it's being used for. But for specifics, more than $265 million has quietly disappeared from the National Investment Fund. The fund held $265.3 million in December. And by March of this year, 200,000 of it only 200,000 is left behind. We saw this story throughout the newspapers yesterday. My opposition leader, Michael Pintard, said he wrote the Minister of Finance directly. He said, in effect, approximately $265 million was removed from the fund within a 3-month period. No word yet from the government on who authorized it, under what legal power was it authorized, or exactly where it went. We saw some commentary by the spokesperson from the government in the person of Latrey Raman, communications director over there at OPM. He said that the government is aware of the process. The government has a idea where the funds is going, but they want us to wait a couple of months to see the breakdown of what exactly happened with those funds. It's bizarre when you can say something like that, but hey, that's the way we operate in the country right now. So we can wait on that story to have full disclosure right there. Story number 2, this is a story we've been following for quite some time now, going back to the election day in May. Convicted trafficker Jonathan Eric Player Gardner. He was hit with new federal charges in Georgia this time. The last time we checked him with the story, he was dealing with charges up in New York. Right now it's being alleged his drug network basically assisted in the transportation of over 2,000 kilograms of cocaine into the state of Georgia, $1 million, according to prosecutors in that case. U.S. Attorney Theodore Hertzberg said that Gardner is a recidivist felon, alleged high-level drug trafficker, and a priority target for his office. This sits on top of, like I said before, the existing case in New York, tied to indictment against a former Bahamian police chief superintendent. One seal affidavit even references a senior Bahamian politician. We still waiting on information on politician 1. But yes, new charges for Mr. Gardner out there in Georgia. We'll keep an eye on that to see where that goes. We know a lot of frenzy has been made about that case. hopefully we could get some resolution and have some indication on, what the money was for. You remember the money he had while he was in the plane when it went down? We're still trying to get to the bottom of that. We remember that there was a name of a politician written on that envelope. That politician was later identified in some regards as politician one. And in court documents in the U.S., that politician has also been revealed to have met with Gardner and some other persons in the House of Assembly. So there's a lot in that story that we still need to unpack. Keeping it moving as we try to get into some of the things that came out. This was a very interesting story that I saw this week. In fact, it was yesterday. Robbery voice notes can be played at trial. That's the headline. A Supreme Court judge has just cleared five viral voices for trial in the $1.4 million Odyssey Aviation robbery case. Justice Dale Fitzpatrick ruling the voice recordings are admissible given their significant probative value. The recordings allegedly capture a prominent lawyer in the country, Michael Johnson. He was placed on garden leave after these things came out, and a late gang leader, Michael Fox, discussing a payoff to kill the investigation into Fox. As you remember, Fox was a part of that Odyssey Aviation robbery case. Johnson himself admitted during a police interview he took part in one of the five voice notes. So those voice notes are admissible to court. They went viral, led to some formal investigations, and again led to former CID Chief Michael Johnson being sent on garden leave. So something else to pay attention to. Hopefully we could start to get off story 4 that we want to get into this week. The team over at Eye Opener, they touched on this. And I want to touch on it from a different angle, and that's why I'm bringing up the story. The headline we saw this week in the Nassau Guardian on August 7th was Chinese ambassador donates $20,000 to beaches and parks. Now, why this stands out to me, and they got into it a little bit, you getting $20,000 donation from Chinese ambassador. I need to understand the protocol and how that was done. But it's even more bizarre when we think about how this department in the government is run. This was the same department that overspent to the tune of $141 million during the last 5 years of the PLP administration, well, the first PLP administration. We ain't get a proper accounting for that yet, but now we seeing donations, we seeing all of these things happening around this department. Again, also this past week, another thing mentioned by the Eye Opener team is we saw a resignation that came about of a young lady online bullying because she is deemed to be a Free National Movement supporter. And I assume, according to some of the persons that addressed the issue, her name is Erinique Johnson, by the way, some of the persons that addressed the issue who are PLP supporters, they held grievance with the fact that she was hired and an F&M supporter. How in the world could the PLP government give an F&M support? What kind of nonsense are we running in this country? Seriously, what kind of nonsense are we running in this country? I was happy to see the bipartisan support yesterday. I saw the press conference. I saw Opposition Leader Michael Pintard. He stood shoulder to shoulder with MP Jamal Strawn, who's, of course, over at Beaches and Park, and both of them addressed the issue. They said that the issue had gotten out of hand, but I just want to know, speaking directly to PLP supporters, what y'all think there's a club? Y'all think like this y'all little country? Anyway, but that's story number 4. And getting into story number 5. It's the one that gonna kick the show off today because this is all I'll be talking about. This back and forth with BPL. Shout out to former Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis. He summed this up greatly this week. He said that the Progressive Liberal Party senior members and some of the senior staff members over at BPL talking nonsense. Those are his exact words. They talking nonsense. And I have to agree. We can get into all of that today. But to clear up why we wanted to pull the story out this week, segments of Guardian over this past week, segments of it is coming from the Tribune as well. This one is very, very problematic. But following up on BPL CEO's Anthony Christie's confirmation that $1 million transformer secured from Egypt, he said that the BPL team, they needed this transformer to be installed at the grid, the grid that we keep talking about, On the same day, political fight of words broke out between Minnis and Mitchell. Mitchell basically throwing blame at the FNM party, the previous FNM administration. Even though there was an entire stretch that the PLP was in government, he's going back to the last Minnis administration, the last FNM administration, basically laying the problem of BPL at the feet of that administration and not getting into the details of all his party failed to do in the 4.5, almost 5 years that they serve in government, and so far almost 3 months that they're currently in government. But hey, we see it. Minnis basically castigated the entire Progressive Liberal Party, basically saying that they've done very little to address this issue. And like I said before, that's something that we're going to get into today. But you know the show, you know the structure. I always have a poem for you today, but I can be honest. I searched long and hard all week to try and sum up or find a poem that sums up exactly how I feel about this BPL situation. To be honest with you, I wasn't able to find one. I wasn't able to find one. Came across, summed up how I felt about this situation. So I didn't write a poem, but I wrote a statement that I really want to make today. And I want us to be absolutely clear with this. A failure is a failure. It doesn't stop being a failure because somebody stood behind a podium and called it progress. It doesn't stop being a failure because somebody handed you a press release instead of an explanation. It is still a failure. And that's what I want the government to understand. That's why I want the senior command over at BPL to understand that we as the Bahamian people, we could see the failures. We experience it every time our power go out. Some instances, I know some persons, they have been without power in consecutive days. I know other people, they've been without power for some stretches up to 14, 16 hours. I know some other persons that despite being without power every day of the month, they've seen a drastic increase in their bill month over month. These are the sorts of things that we have to stop pretending with. That's why I thought it important to make this statement today. A failure is a failure. It doesn't stop being a failure because somebody stood behind a podium and called it progress. And I want the government to get serious with this issue. It's been too long. And that's why today I want to focus the show on this BPL issue to see if we could dive in some of the history of how we got here. Because I am fed up with the idea of we're going to use this as a political football to pass between the two prominent parties in this country. And one of them gets into government, it becomes the next person's fault. We got to get to the bottom of this. And to see some of the things that we had to go through the past 2 weeks, and then to see some of the commentary made by the senior leadership over at BPL, them coming in, basically gaslighting the Bahamian public, that did something to me today. But not today. It did something to me this past week. I've been trying to, get over those feelings, get over that anger, but it's just too much. And as we get into today's episode, man, we're gonna get into all of that. And I'm excited to have you. Even though we got all this BPL talk, I will keep the phone lines open. So if you want to join the conversation at any point, telephone lines are going to be open as soon as we come back from the break. 323-6232, 325-4316, 325-4259, or toll free from the Family Islands at 242-300-5720. Text lines are also going to be active today if you want to hit us up via text. That line is powered by BTC. It's 422-GR96. That's 422-4796. But we're going to dive into this BPL thing today. My guest is in the building. I'm going to formally introduce him after the break. And conversation and tell me how you feel about BPL. This is the time to do it. Or if you have any input on how we can improve our grid or improve our country generally, this is the day to do it, man. But we're going to take this quick break. Track 3 off of rap music. I told you that's the album that's going to be powering us all day. Is Southern Fried. That's going to carry us to the break. We're going to be back in a minute. Thank you for joining the forum today.
Attention All-Star students.
The season for school success starts now at John Bull Business Center. Stock up on notebooks, backpacks, pens, calculators, art supplies, and more with 20% off school supplies and 10% off teaching aids. Shop now through September 12th, and every purchase automatically enters you to win one of 3 Apple prizes. This year is your season to shine. Gear up, save big in Istanbul Business Center.
Budgeting and saving? Yes. Investing? Check. But what if you could do more? With an RF brokerage account, you can get priority access to local investment opportunities right as they come to the market. Never miss a bond or new share offering again. Plus, you can house all your investments in one place and benefit from expert investment advice. Contact us at brokerage@rfgroup.com to start doing more today. Some conditions apply. RF, money at work.
Love the show? Want to give your support? Become a sponsor today. Call 302-2300 for our rates and packages. That's 302-2300. Become a sponsor on Guardian Radio 96.9 FM. Fresh news, smart talk, all day.
This is Guardian Radio 96.9 FM, streaming on GuardianTalkRadio.com and the Guardian Radio app, Nassau, Bahamas.
Welcome back to the forum on this beautiful Saturday in Nassau, Bahamas. Yeah, the track behind me, that is another one of my favorites off that album, Willie Burke Sherwood. So if you have a chance, man, pick up the Big Mike album. Like I said before, it's rap music, R-A-P music. Yeah, pick up the album, enjoy some of the tracks, man. Again, that's Willie Burke Sherwood on that album. But as I said before we went into the break, today's topic is all about BPL. We're trying to figure out the host today. Jason Gibson, he's going to go into the process of getting set up right quick, but it's all BPL today. I want persons to understand that this is not an issue that kind of just popped up overnight, but it's also an issue that successive governments have had the opportunity to try and address, and they've just done a terrible job addressing it. I don't want persons to feel like this is a process where, we throwing money at a problem and it's just not, giving us the results it needs. No, we have had tremendous missteps dealing with this problem over the last couple of years. And I just don't like the idea of how we present it. It's time for us to be constructive with the issue. It's time for us to look at this and find true solutions and not just pass blame. I know I have a couple of clips that I sent to Simba, and so you could understand my frustration when I talk about us being gaslight. This is where it stems from. Simba, if you could give me clip 1. You have it ready? You have it ready? All right, let's go with clip 1. Okay, yeah, as we work to get through that. But yeah, it's a couple of news clips that really went viral. Right? The government telling people, not the government, BPL senior team, telling persons everything. We have the clip ready now? Let's see if we have it. Just bear with us a second.
About whether BPL was actually summer ready, despite previous suggestions. She called on consumers to conserve more.
And because I think we like to say the gotcha moment. Got. The fact of the matter is, I want everyone to hear me on this. This is one of the most complex systems in the Caribbean. We have a Class B substation that we just brought online. We have 132 kV lines. We have 33 kV underground cables, which are unheard of in the Caribbean. The fact that we were able to reach out and get materials in a timely fashion speaks to our relationship within the Caribbean. This is not unusual for us to have where one utility needs something from another utility. Utilities do this and support each other all the time. They do it in the U.S. under mutual agreements. We do it here. BPL, in terms of summer readiness, had gone through the system We had looked at everything. We had made sure that the generation was online in New Providence.
For thousands of residents in Western New Providence, what was supposed to be a fun-filled holiday weekend quickly turned into a nightmare as prolonged power outages left homes and businesses without electricity for hours. The blackouts came after weeks of recurring outages that have fueled growing frustration among consumers.
It is just not the best thing to say, well, were you summer ready? Yes. BPL was absolutely summer ready in terms of making sure that we had sufficient generation, that we had modeled the system, that we were looking for all opportunities that we could to where we needed to mitigate. We did. We worked very closely with BGC, and the two companies together we have meetings now. Is it every week now? Every week. This system that we have is aging in the ground. Yes. And we're doing everything we can to mitigate that.
Throughout Tuesday's news conference at the Office of the Prime Minister, a recurring message from Bahamas Power and Light.
And see, that right there is why I opened the show the way I did. A failure is a failure. It doesn't stop being a failure because somebody stood at a press conference and called it progress. To my learned friend in that situation, her point was that BPL was summer ready. How could you claim that we were summer ready when we're seeing the results now? Now, granted, I do understand you inherited, but the point still remains. You were not summer. That is evident. We can't pretend on this situation. That is evident that you were not summer ready. So to gaslight the Bahamian people, and I have another clip that we're going to get to in a bit, but to gaslight the Bahamian people and make them believe that, oh, some extreme situation happened and knocked us off of our preparedness. Thank the Lord we've had no hurricanes this. Thank the Lord we've had no major issues related to Mother Nature otherwise that could possibly,
change
or damage our grid even more. But what you have right now is you're telling us that you were ready. And we could clearly see that you were not. So I'm asking, like, point blank, what are we doing? What is the... And just to provide some history on where we got to BPL, because I want to be fair. And I could go all the way back. And when I say all the way back, I get back to 1907. That's when the Electric Light Act was passed. And that's when electricity arrived in Nassau for the first time. So we go way back then to understand where the grid problem come from today. Okay? In 1920, we saw the rates cut to help adoption of electricity throughout the city of Nassau. And that's when Nassau was in the Nassau we see today. And at that time, persons understood, like, as we add more persons onto the grid, we're going to have to develop this grid out. That was the plan from there. 1940s, we saw some family islands. They got electricity. It wasn't as quickly adopted in the family islands as it was in Nassau. In 1956, we saw the Electricity Act, which created the former BEC, the Bahamas Electricity Corporation. And that was a government entity ran by the government, basically a monopoly. And that ran through independence. So we've been at this 6 decades and beyond. This past year, we saw Grand Bahama. They had their own energy grid for quite some time. That was run by the Canadian utility company Emera for decades. And then this year we saw Emera announce that they're going to sell their shares of Grand Bahama Power Company to the government. And then the government is still trying to finance that process. But it shows you that throughout this time we have developed and we've had conversations around this grid. Now it brings us back to what I think has been the most pivotal stage of our operation in this country as it comes to electricity. Early 2000s going into the 2010s. That's when we recognized at that point in time that the grid needed drastic upgrades. So we saw successive governments come in, adding a generator there, trying to run some new power lines here, that sort of stuff. But no government has taken it from 2002 with the Christie administration, the first Christie administration. No government has taken the process of saying, hey, we need to build an entirely new power station. We've seen upgrades to Clifton. We've seen upgrades to the Blue Hills plant. We've seen upgrades, slight upgrades, nothing major. But we've not seen a systematic reimagining of our grid in this country. And that's why I want to go back to the story. This is a very important story from the Tribune. This was written by Neil Hartnell in June of 2024. At that time, this is when we had to switch. The F&M was voted out, and we went into the first round of the Progressive Liberal Party Davis administration. This was right around COVID, well, right after COVID. And at that time, the Progressive Liberal Party, Davis administration, they announced plans for 30 mil equity capital investment, which at the time Sands branded as, and I quote, a hell of a deal. And the reason he termed it that is because how that deal was handled. And that deal gave way to what we're now seeing. Let's go back to 2017. That F&M administration came in. They came in with this idea to purchase some new generations. We talked about the basic upgrades. In March of 2019, the BPL signed a fast-track deal with Wärtsilä. Wärtsilä was supposed to construct a 132 megawatt engine power plant at Station A. We heard in that clip, she mentioned Station B. At Station A, we were supposed to construct a plant for these Wärtsilä engines. In December 2019, that plant, $95 million, came online to add generation reliability and phase out expensive rental power generators. That is what the F&M government did in 2019. And I'm going to give the F&M government some kudos. I'm going to give them some flowers because it was their intent to improve the immediate fix that we needed. No. Was it a Band-Aid solution? Yes. Did it help? Yes. We saw immediately at that time some improvements made to our power generation. That brings us to the end of 2022. That plant, matter of fact, no, let me don't skip over. That plant that was finalized in December 2019, those generators were supposed to be tri-fuel generators. That's what they were intended to be. And when we talk about dry fuel, those were supposed to run on heavy fuel oils. They were supposed to be capable of running on heavy fuel oils. They were supposed to be able to run on light fuel oil diesel mix, LFO, and then they were supposed to be able to run on liquid natural gas. That is what we signed a deal with Wärtsilä to do. That deal left us in a spot where the engines needed to be upgraded to a certain extent to allow for it to be that case. So whatever fuel was cheapest at the time, we would be able to run. That's what the F&M left in when they were elected out of office. Well, when they were kicked out of office. The government came in shortly thereafter. The Progressive Liberal Party government came in shortly thereafter. And they intended to, some people would say, follow through on this. They didn't. The F&M government left in a hedge deal that would try to keep fuel costs low. That deal was kind of left off the table when the PLP came into power. So we see all of these things in the transition process that brings us back to the core issue. The PLP government, the prior PLP government served 4.5 years, and in that 4.5 years, they decided to sign what Dr. Sands at the time termed a hell of a deal. That's where we got this Bahamas grid solution. That is where we got this Pike involvement. That is where we got all of these things. And to date, we have not been able to see any improvements to our grid because of that process.
All right, so there was a lot to unpack, Bahamas. If you notice, you had the full history of electricity in the Bahamas and how it come to what it is today. So what we're going to try unpack is like the depth of what is really surrounding this. So when the present administration come in power, what they intend to do was to phase out what the F&M have left in place, because this great deal what they have, they formulate this private vehicle, which is the Bahama Grid Solution along with Pike Electrical. Yep. And in return, what it appeared that they wanted to do was, now just remember, Bahamas, we can speculate to a certain extent because the lack of information, and it was put there. It wasn't put there just so that we wouldn't know the truth behind the deal. So we just gonna try unwrap it according to the information that
some background. This is something that you've been. In fact, this is kind of an issue that gave way to your budding political career. This is something that you've been focusing on for years. You, from this initial deal broke out, you've been speaking out about this. I know you offered yourself up in, I think that was the 2021 general election, and then you tried again this past election. But this is an issue that you've been addressing for years across social media.
Yes, and the reason why this really looked shady to me. See, a lot of people would sit back and say that a good thing is a good thing, and what people tend to do when they want to mask the truth behind it, they would present a good thing to you, and the thing was that Pike Electric come to the Bahamas as supposed to be the savior, simply because their background in engineering and the stabilizing of this whole grid power concept.
The whole idea was that it was supposed to help us stabilize our grid at the time as we work to figure out new generation.
Well, it wasn't the whole idea, because in return, the Bahamian government, what they did was they gave them 60% ownership in our what known was BPL back then. So they had to put a lot of heavy stocks in them. Okay, so what the nature behind the agreement that the Bahamian government got into was that Pike Electric put up $30 million, and what they call it, I think they come up with that money up front, and they gain the 60%.
And when we say Pike, we're talking about Pike's agreement to be a part of what became Bahamas Grid Solution.
You're making it sound good, yes. You're making it sound good, but according to the details, yes, their agreement, because that is why the $130 million renovation and restructure of our grid come into play.
Right.
And Bahamas, just know that after the deal, you had some other groups part of the special vehicle, and when you unfold the deal, like just doing some more research, I realized that Pike really didn't put too much into this.
Right.
You know, like you got to have some skin in. It didn't put much into it. But what I did know, what was a big controversial thing, was that once the deal was signed, Pike was then given $100 million up front. Right. According to the records, right?
So let me say it like this, and this is why I brought up this story by Neil Hartnell back from 2024, because he started to unpack exactly what we're trying to do today. He kind of laid it out, and he used Dr. Sands at the time to help tell this narrative. So this is what Dr. Sands had to say to Tribune Business at the time. He said that the Davis administration minimum 25 years agreement with the Bahamas Grid Company, the entity in which New Providence transmission and distribution is being transferred. So at that time, the government transferred the transmission and distribution end of BPL into this new, as we call it, special service entity, which became Bahamas Grid Solution. And Dr. Sands at that time called it, again, that's a hell of a deal, he asserted, for $30 million. That's a hell of a deal, a majority interest in a national electricity grid for $30 million. When you talk about a bargain, that's quite a bargain. You also get to set the terms and preference shares, those common shares. You're going to be selecting the board members. So all of that was a part of the deal at the time that we talked about when we talk about the Bahamas Grid Solution, their involvement with Pike. So all of these things were developed. Again, the Watsilla engines were purchased. I don't want to get away from that fact. Okay. All the government had to do when they came into power, the Progressive Liberal Party, after that 2021 general election, is go ahead and pick up the hedge to ensure that we kept lower fuel. And then what they needed to do at the BPL level is just ensure that those engines were serviced to the point that they can handle all three of the fuel options that they were built to do. I'm not saying it would have completely solved that issue, but it would allow us to keep the generation that we needed while we figured out a long-term solution. But not only did the hedge go off the table, there was a whole hoopla over that, because at the time the new Minister of Works, Alfred, says there was a whole back and forth where he said that he didn't forget the hedge, and the former Minister of Works saying, but we left the hedge in place, why didn't you pick it up? That former minister was Desmond Bannister. We still don't know what happened to the hedge agreement back then. And then that moved into what happened to these engines, because these engine stations was built out. And then what happened, and this is what I wanted to get to, at the end of 2022, just a year after the election, BPL officially ended its operations and maintenance contract with Watsilla, transitioning the plant overnight. Watsilla was there to service those engines, to ensure that those engines could run at peak capacity until we decided which of the fuel options we wanted to do. That deal was ended at the end of 2022. Less than a year and 3 months after the general election. So that right there shows you that the government at the time needed to figure out what was going to be our generation situation.
Or maybe they already had a plan.
And that's what we want to get into. This is what brings us to the Bahamas Grid Solution deal. This is what brings us to the Pike deal. Go ahead.
So with the new deal that they embark on in 2024, it took them less than a week to come up with a solution that this would be the company that we would be running with. Okay, so the question is now for Bahamians, because we know that there is a lot more homes that been built. There's a lot more resorts that been open in terms of Bahamas Grid living up to their promise that they're gonna change out the infrastructure monies were put in place, and with the $100 million that was actually sent to the company upon the agreement signing was stated to change overhead old wires and everything that we needed to help towards the transmission. Yes. Yeah. Okay, so that was there, and then if you can remember back in December there was a $90 million bailout again by the government, and so we're gonna have to pay for all of this.
We're still paying for it.
We're still paying for it, but. What we gotta still also look at, I think there was an additional $50 million also.
It was an equity raise.
Yeah.
And this is why I want to, again, if you have a chance, search up on the Tribune 242, you're going to find the Dr. Dwayne Sands story. The FNM chair says $30 million for BPL Grid, a national steal. That is the title. That was the headline of this story. And I want to go back. Branding the government's energy reform plans as Blue Water 2.0. A reference to the first Christie administration's failed effort to privatize the Bahamas telecommunications network towards the end of the their first term in office. Dr. Sands added, "It's fascinating that with such a critical transaction for the country, they would deem it reasonable to take this approach." And what was that approach? Dr. Sands, a direct quote again, "It's unfortunate the scenario that they are trying to justify the transaction as somehow reasonable, as somehow necessary in the fashion that it has been chosen. The more they explain it, it's a national steal. I think that we should all protest nationally at the concept that they are demonstrating allied to nebulous language for what is single preferred vendor or contractor." So what the government did, and this is what Dr. Sands was pointing out, that the government decided that they were going to take the special service vehicle, put all of our quote-unquote transmission and distribution capability into this, basically give it over to them.
That's what they did.
Give it over to them. Allow them to manage us to improve our network. But they did not look at what we needed in generation at that time. Then the government followed up and say, hey, we know we're intending to build, and they list off a ton of opportunities that they had in LNG. They list off a top of the opportunities that they had in solar. All of these things were proposed to come down the line. So going back to the first clip that we played a short while ago, he said that they were summer ready for this year. But we've seen in the last 4.5 years that they've done very little to be summer ready. Now, granted, a part of the Pike deal, they've erected all kind of new transmission stations. Well, not all kind. They do the one right off of Blue Hill Road behind the new Coconut Grove Clinic. We see that. We saw the Pike trucks all over pulling lines, doing all this, improving our transmission grid. But where is the generation? Where was the generation that we were promised? Now, Pike is out. That deal is fallen through. We've seen all kind of issues with that. Where's the new generation coming from?
Okay, stick a pin right there. By you saying Pike is out, which means that apparently they stepped down from the board. So are they out as the 60% holder, or?
That's where I'm summing it up. All of that, again, needs to be clarified. And this is why I'm saying to everyone, this is why this deal is so bizarre. Because right now, we saw what happened. Pike stepped down. There's an expansion. We have the first, how they termed it, the Bahamian-led group that's going to be taking over the management of Bahamas Grid Solutions and all of this. But we don't understand what happened to that 50% stake.
60%.
60% stake. Start.
So deeper dive into that. I think I've sent you some information on that earlier, right?
Yeah.
So now the Pike itself, the overall company, has been sold back in, I think, September of last year, or it was sold, right? But it didn't state that the company itself, the holdings of the 60% of the Bahamian share,
right, was
that also sold inside of that particular deal. There is no information regarding exactly what is this deal. With Pike, they stepping down. What does that mean? Are they forfeit their deal with the Bahamas Grid Solution in terms of the transmission? None of that is there. And I think the Freedom of Information Act, this was going to be the 10th year since it was enacted. It has never been taken serious. And that's why we as Bahamians, we're looking now, and we have a lot more questions than answers.
Yeah. And this was exactly what led to, when she was named the minister responsible for
Davis.
Yeah.
Okay.
Miss Jobette Colby Davis, this was something that she caught a lot of flack for, because when they came into office the second go around, these were questions that persons hoped immediately would get answered, because she had such a critical role when this Pike deal was signed.
Yeah.
When this Bahamas Grid Solution deal was signed.
And
she touted this. There was a whole marketing rollout for the ways that the Progressive Labour Party intended to basically move our power grid into, as they termed it, into the future, move it into the 21st century. Let me just stick a plug right now. Again, this is a lot we're trying to unpack today. If you want to join the conversation, telephone lines are open: 323-6232, 325-4316, 325-4259. Toll free from the Family Islands at 242-300-5720. Text lines are also active today. Powered by BTC 422-GR96. That's 422-4796. Standard text rates do apply. But yes, she got a lot of flack because at that time, she basically said that this was the step forward.
Yes.
So she was the one, again, even as we were coming into summer, that said that we are ready for summer. She proclaimed that. So all of these things were stated. All of these things were put on the record. We have not seen the product of those discussions.
Yeah, the minister, she just doing her part because she gets information from the group, and she hoped that they follow through on their behalf. So their job is, not to put any type of way. So what is her job is to come to the people and try to pretty up, like put a blanket on a pig and put a lipstick on it and make it look pretty, But rightfully so, I think all of the ministers of different areas are like, which means that they're supposed to monitor and control everything that was in their grasp around this whole thing. Yeah. So Miss Davis, she really dropped the ball, and I don't see no way I can actually like praise her in this, but she dropped the ball simply because she would not following up. Anytime you sign your name to something, right, whenever you get out and make a public statement about a company that said to do something, you follow up.
Yeah.
Okay? And there's no way she can get away from this one. And, she is a crucial major player, being the Minister of Energy Source, because the group that she represent before all of this, right? Okay, so if you do your research, you would realize that she represented a particular group that has big interest into everything that's going on, that's actually spearhead this other 40% of the Bahamian deal right now. So
you gotta be a little careful there now. We ain't trying to, So let's make sure we saying allegedly. Let's make sure
alleged. Yeah.
Yeah.
So well, all of these things is in writing. You can find all of these in the Tribune as well, right? So
and when you said she represented, this was
back then before she became So this before But once good relationship, always a good relationship.
That's the way the Bahamians do things.
Yeah, so she have to somehow either separate herself from this. I think she should, go as far as resigning, because number one, she's a conflict of interest. Number two, she was not fully honest with the Bahamian people as to what is really taking place.
I can agree with the whole standpoint of her not being honest. And again, this is why I'm telling people to go back to this BPL story. Exactly what we're doing today, this is what Dr. Sands did back in 2024 to kind of address this entire issue. And one of the things he pointed out is what you're trying to get to, is how this whole deal came about. At that time, he got the government to admit that they single-sourced this entire deal. This entire deal that resulted in the creation of Bahamas Grid Solution, that resulted in the whole Pike scenario. It was a single source deal. Rather than a competitive bidding process, this was a single source deal. The Bahamas Utility Company, the fully owned subsidiary of BISIC's local Focal Holdings, as a New Providence generator with responsibility to construct a new 177 megawatt LNG fuel power plant. Dr. Sands mentioned that in the story again.
Yes.
So these sorts of things is what we talked about. When we talk about the generation, they already had a deal in place, as you alluded to. So coming in, when they made the deal to move away from what Watsilla was doing with a power plant, they already had a backup plan.
Yes.
And that was a single source process. So they didn't go to the regular bidding and tender and all of that. They jumped straight to a deal that they already had earmarked to make. Okay?
Correct.
And this ain't me trying to, carry water for any political party. This is me trying to get to the bottom of how we got to the point we're at today. When the F&M moved out of office in 2021, after they were defeated by the Progressive Liberal Party, they left a generation plan in place. Watsilla was supposed to manage the deal. That deal was canceled at the end of 2022, less than a year and 3 months after the general election. Immediately thereafter, the government moved to a single source process where they figured out that they were going to go with this company at the time called Bahamas Utility Company, which was, we all know the people behind Focal. We ain't got to call no name. We ain't got to get into that. We all know who it is. That team was supposed to go ahead and build a new 177 megawatt LNG fuel power plant. We ain't see no groundbreaking. We ain't see no nothing, but you move away from a deal to pursue something else, and you left the Bahamian people high and dry. Let's continue before we get onto this. A similar procurement process was used or resulted in what became the Bahamas Grid Company that we keep talking about, and the selection of the island grid. Dr. Sanz at the time said it was impossible, given the absence of competitive bidding, that we would see multiple offers compete to be selected on the same terms, to know the best possible price and the best energy reform deal. All of these were deals that were signed almost in consecutive orders by the government shortly after the 2021 general election. So now we're seeing the story come together and how we got to this point. Again, I'm not pointing to the F&M back in 2017 through 2021 and saying that they had the best plan. But there was a plan.
Put in place.
There was something in place. It was starting to work. You shelved all of those plans in the interest of, I guess, political expediency to do what you thought was best for the... And it has not worked out. So when you talk about the resignation of the Minister of Energy, this is why I lean to that point. Because all of these things were done under your watch. All of these were done with you sitting in the big chair to make the big decisions. You moved us into a deal with Bahamas Grid Solutions. You moved us into a deal with the Bahamas Utility Company. All of these special service vehicles were created in a short period of time to do exactly this. And so far, it has yielded very little. And the only persons that are suffering is the Bahamian general public that don't have the ability, as some people online and say, the poor Bahamians who don't have the ability to afford generators. We go into our next break. I want Simba to play clip 2 so you could see where my core frustration in this whole ordeal is. Simba, if we could get clip 2.
Liability. We really do need the public's support and assistance. So in short, this is a public appeal, right? Conserve load where you can. Mr. Holder also talked about unreported or unauthorized connected loads, right? There's a reason why we have processes in place where you ought to report when you're connecting a new EV charger, right? That's a substantial drain, and that's unseen to the system operators. So in short, what I'm saying is we're appealing to the public at large to assist us with curtailing load, especially during peak period. We have a very beautiful island, right? Constant breeze. Sometimes it may be not a bad thing. I know I do it. I go out and I sit on the beach and enjoy what this beautiful island has to offer. But to each his own. In order to maintain this.
So as he said, call it gaslighting to the highest degree. You telling the Bahamian people after y'all and spend years now getting us to a point where, as you said, you were ready for the summer. It's quite clear that you're not. But now that we're not ready for summer and things are getting left, you invite the Bahamian people to conserve energy.
Join them on the beach.
You invite the Bahamian people to a beach picnic because you have not done your job to prepare us for the load that we're experiencing right now during the summer. These people got to be ungodly, man. It's just no way for you to think like this. You telling the people who, after all this time, the government and tell people, hey, we getting green, we could get all these electric cars, we could do all this kind of stuff. Now you can tell me the electric cars is what can up the load? What can up the load? We cannot be serious. We absolutely cannot be serious right now in 2026. This is ridiculous.
In the new law, didn't they make way that electrical cars?
Yeah, in the road, in the new
affordable? Yeah.
The recent road traffic amendment, it told us that electric cars, because how great they are for our country, is now going to be kind of reduced on the cost of licensing them.
Oh, okay, and also in the past week or so, we had different persons that were speaking out on the behalf of this of BPL itself, because
Yeah.
it actually has three companies
More than
comprised.
three. Because if you want count the Generation N, there's certain people they do fuel work with. It's all type. It's all type. Boo.
And you had from, I think, the Prime Minister spoke.
Yep.
You had the Minister of Energy spoke.
Yep.
You had the CEO spoke.
Yep.
Like there were many people just coming out the woodwork rather than one single message,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's where the project manager idea come in. Is because that everything be contained into one package.
Right.
Make sure that when anyone's speaking, the message, the communication about what is happening has all the stakeholders, Bahamians would be the last to get it because they're going to be the one who needs to be satisfied. You cannot have different people saying different things, singing with different tone.
I respect that. I can never be one here to tell these people how to do their job. What I can tell them is, you ain't gonna gaslight my people, and we ain't gonna try and teach them.
And the Prime Minister, what he said, when I heard he made the statement, but there are growing pains and stuff like that.
Unacceptable.
Like that, it isn't like you want us to look at it as this your first term. Listen, what the PLP had going good for them. They had no major disaster, no disaster at all, other than themselves, right?
Yeah.
They have the second term, first time in like almost forever that any political party can actually repeat,
Yeah.
right? So if you telling us then that you had the answers, you just need more time.
Yeah.
Where's this growing pain coming
And
all
this,
of a sudden?
and this is why I wanted to take the time today and lay this entire situation out. And I'm going to keep hammering this point home. I am not going to carry water for any political party and celebrate the last minute's administration as the greatest government ever. But what I am going to do, we got to take a quick break. After we come back, I can finish my whole spiel. So let's get into the break.
My man Jojo got caught on fit photo, so he gotta get out of Atlanta here, Soho. Baby mama say he being selfish, like Soho. Then he picked up cell phone call.
Budgeting is investing? Check. But what if you could do more? With an RF brokerage account, you can get priority access to local investment opportunities right as they come to the market. Never miss a bond or new share offering again. Plus, you can house all your investments in one place and benefit from expert investment advice. Contact us at brokerage@rfgroup.com to start doing more today. Some conditions apply. RF, money at work.
Headed to South Florida soon? Holiday Inn Express in Plantation welcomes you to the heartbeat of Florida fun. Whether it's business or pleasure, the Holiday Inn Express is close to sensational shopping, captivating dining, and nightlife. Elevate your Florida experience. Sleep well and rest easy at Holiday Inn Express. Complimentary breakfast buffet featuring seasonal favorites. Keep up your fitness routine in our 24-hour on-site fitness center with cardio equipment and free weights, or take a refreshing swim in our outdoor pool. Your special Bahamas tourist rate awaits. Holiday Inn Express, 1701 North University Drive, in Plantation. Book your getaway now. Call directly at 954-472-5600 or the sales department for reservations and additional information.
Love the show? Want to give your support? Become a sponsor today. Call 302-23 Rates and Packages. That's 302-2300. Become a sponsor on Guardian Radio 96.9 FM. Fresh news, smart talk, all day.
This is Guardian Radio 96.9 FM, streaming on GuardianTalkRadio.com, Nassau, Bahamas.
Welcome back to the forum. Your opportunity to get into the conversation. So please join the movement. Going out on the last break, we had Jojo chilling. Again, we're working our way through one of Killer Mike's best albums. Coming in from the break, we have one of my favorite tracks, Don't Die. Don't Die. And that's what we can try to do today. We can try not to die if BPL working. Shout out to everybody at the hospital. I know when we was having all of these outages, I got a couple of calls, a couple of texts, persons telling me their horror stories of the persons on dialysis, persons that had to have procedures sidestepped because of whatever reason. These are the sorts of issues that we have to think about when we start to address the energy crisis going on in the Bahamas. And I could call it a crisis. I ain't gonna call it a crisis. I ain't gonna run from it. It's a crisis. It needs to be addressed. It needs to be dealt with. It's a crisis. And again, if you want to join the conversation today, all BPL today, we unpacking a lot. I have a special guest in the studio today, Jason Gibson. He's somebody that has followed this issue all over social media for much of the last 8 years, trying to deep dive on the situation to figure out how we got from what was a failing grid to now a grid beyond repair. But if you want to join the conversation today, telephone lines are open 323-6232. 325-4316, 325-4259. Toll free from the Family Islands, 242-300-5720. Again, text lines are also open today, 422-GR96. That's 422-4796. Standard text rate supply. Text line is powered by BTC. And before we went to break, I was, getting up on my soapbox to basically tell people, that's like behemoths. Basically bamboozle persons out there working hard every day trying to make a living. I ain't gonna sit back and tolerate the idea that Bahamian people working every day, paying their bills on time, paying their taxes on time, and you will look around and tell them, hey, I can't keep the light on, and because I can't keep the light on, you should go to the beach. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. You have a lot of persons that throughout the night, in order for them to get a comfortable sleep, they need to have CPAP machines, all these sorts of things plug in to get through the night, and you're risking life and limb. And you telling Bahamian people, despite all that they have done, that if they can't go and find the money to buy a generator just in case, that is a possibility that they could, lose their life in their sleep because we refuse to get our grid together. We refuse to get our power generation together. We refuse to get our power transmission together. We refuse to do all these things. And then from my standpoint, and I was cautioning Jason before the break to be careful how he say it, but I could dare say things like this because I've done the research. We have done all of this because politicians believe that they could.
This is Guardian Radio, 96.9 FM.
Politicians believe that they have the solution, that they have the things in the bag, a direction that, for lack of a better term, benefits them. And I feel in large part this is what this BPL situation is all about. And again, I'm not going to carry water for any political party. I'm saying this throughout the show. I'm not saying that the F&M government 2017 to 2021 was the best government that we've ever had. I'm not saying that. That party, that administration at the time made a lot of mistakes. But what I am going to say is they made a valiant effort to address this generation issue. A valiant effort. And from my standpoint, what I saw at the time, if the plant was constructed the way it was intended to, I felt like that would have been a huge help for us to see more stable, reliable power in this country if that deal was done properly. And I feel like the Progressive Liberal Party came in 2021 on the heels of COVID, on the heels of Dorian, and they made a decision that, hey, yeah, we're going to, and again, shout out that they were going to revolutionize our energy in this country. But so far, nothing has come to fruition.
Yeah, nothing would have changed either because it's still the same players.
And
just different government, but it's still the same people.
And we talk about all the different players, all the different groups involved. We hear about the Bahamas Grid Solutions. We hear about Island Grid. We hear about Pike. We hear about Island Grid Solutions. We hear about all of these players that are involved, and you leaving the Bahamian people in a situation where they're stuck trying to even figure out who does what and how it actually works. I remember a couple of weeks ago I was on, I think it's about 3 or 4 weeks ago, I was on Morning Blend on a Friday, or I think it was a Wednesday or Friday, whichever day it was. I was on Morning Blend. A lady called in, and she was like, she just had a new house construction. And she was trying to get her power turned on, and then she made a call to BPL to figure out how she could get it done. And they sent her to this place, to that place, to this group, to that group. And she sat in her house for almost a couple of weeks at that point. Could not get her power on because it was unclear on who she should have spoken to. That is where you leave our Bahamian citizens in a quest to make these sorts of deals.
But to all of this happening, right, I don't think we're getting high light bills this summer, right? I want someone to call in and tell me what is the difference between their bill 3 months ago and now. Well, from since June to now, it's August now. Okay.
Uh-huh.
So just call in and tell us what your experience of your bills were like so far, because we don't want to feel like we're fighting a battle that you're not being affected by.
Caller, go ahead. You're on the forum.
Good day, sir.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon. I called for two reasons. One, I heard a gentleman just now said he's not too sure if higher light bills has been the thing this summer. I don't know if he's been missing social media or if he doesn't have a Facebook account or something like that.
Well, he tried to call you a bluff. Go ahead.
My bill, in my opinion, without any into my household, my bill went from, I think, roughly about 230 something to 5 something. No increase in usage. The air condition still run the same as if we weren't in summer, and you're getting higher bills. And I attribute these higher bills in the summer to a policy change that the current administration made in their first year or 2 years in their last administration. If you remember, they would have moved the hedge or that something.
We talked about that. We talked about.
As a result, it was said that as a result of moving this hedge, the government decided that it would in somehow kind of balance the bills of persons, where in the summer we'd be paying more and in the Christmas or in the winters we'd be paying less. And that was supposed to be for a period of time. That period of time has since seemingly been extended to now, because there have been no revision of that policy in terms of the increase to pay off what the hedge had contributed in additional cost of power generation and distribution in the country.
Right.
There have been nobody has revisited that. However, we move on now to the talking of this. There's another new policy now, like the lady who wants to get off. So there's this new policy that DPL has, where if your power has been off for 6 months or more, you have to go into the Ministry of Works. And the Ministry of Works is then responsible for inspecting your building, whether it's a business or residential property, to ensure that it's properly wired to avoid. And it's almost like a fire hazard safety kind of thing that is supposed to be a free charge. Persons down at the Ministry of Works have been charging the general public a fee of between $500 and more to do a service that is free. To hear that lady sit in her house, for the amount of time that she sat in her house, plaguing with trying to get her power connected so that she can move in, it's disheartening, and it's going on all across the country, even in the Family Island. I recently had to have a power restored to a dwelling place in the Family Island, and had to go through that same thing, or else I would have to wait weeks in order to get that inspected. And it should not be. We should not. This culture of give me something to get something done, we have to change that in this country. It is a plague to us and our development, and it's infecting all of our agencies.
Right.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. And just to top off from what that caller just said, again, I've been able to speculate on information. I want people to know exactly how we got to this point. So just to provide some more context, in 2021, that's when, like I said, the PLP government was elected. It built out its own architecture. Instead of reviving that same shell deal that we talked about, or the rate reduction board, the government decided to build out its own new plan. In June 2024, the deal with Pike Corporation, which was an American company or is an American company, that deal was signed through a Bahamian subsidiary called Island Grid Solutions. Island Grid Solutions later became the majority shareholder of Bahamas Grid Solutions, BGC. BGC doesn't just manage the New Providence transmission and distribution, it owns it. That is what Dr. Sands was talking about in the article I shared with you earlier. That is where the $30 million deal came about. And that is taken out of the hands of BPL. So we move our transmission and distribution from BPL and we set it over to the Bahamas Grid Company. In April 2025, the Bahamas Grid Company launches a $130 million upgrade, 25-year agreement for 32 miles of transmission line. 0 BPL linesmen agreed to move over to BGC. Needed the 150 workers, half recruited by spring, still short 60 to 80. March 21 of 2026, of course, we had the tragedy that occurred. Pike worker Cody Castillo, he was shot and killed here in the Bahamas. There was somebody, police superintendent, Bernil Pinder. Roughly 40 Pike employees leave the country following that tragedy. Within weeks, BGC transitions into a fully independent, all Bahamian-led model under the new CEO, Dario McKinsey. Now we are seeing the timeline. That leaves us to the point where we question this whole transmission thing. Pike Electrical, technically they're out, portions of it is still in. Where's the actual manpower now coming from? Our new transmission developments is still ongoing, but we ain't seeing it. That brings us to what we saw in Parliament a couple of weeks ago, over $500 million needed for infrastructure over 5 years, over $1 billion combined with debt. Okay, so to move, according to the government, to fix this issue is about $500 million. When we pick up the debt that BPL currently has, it's $1 billion. But you transferred the generation, the transmission and distribution netted a deal of $30 million. You couldn't get enough to offset some of this debt?
Bad agreement.
Okay. But yet still, through all of this, there's been no independent audit.
Ricardo, one thing I can say that I hate about the Bahamas involvement of all the successive governments when it comes to negotiation, they always negotiate from a mindset that they are the yard niggas or something like that, you know. Yeah.
Apologies for that.
Man, listen. Excuse me, but when you think about negotiation, you always got to come from a position of power. If you own BPL itself, okay, and maybe we are having the wrong conversation, just because the fact that they bring this guy in, Eric, they brought that he was in the masterpiece behind this. Their main office is in Life at Key, which means that this could be a power play, all right? This whole thing could be a power play by the government itself and the major people behind all of the assets that driven this country for years.
Right.
Okay, so if you have a company in Life at Key that formed this whole company that make the bond with Eric Pike, bring them in, I don't know if they introduced him to the government or the prime minister, or maybe it might have been a personal thing, okay?
Right.
And when you look at it, this gentleman, he was given 60% for little, right? Mm-hmm. Now he have the rights where he can say, hey, I'm out. But let's back up. Right after the deal was agreed to, he was then transferred $100 million of the Bahamian People Fund. Allegedly. That's supposed to be we're helping with the grid up, you know.
And not he, the company.
The company himself. Oh, okay, yeah, because, you know, one person don't really run a company.
Yeah. These entities are a lot beyond one person.
Yes.
But to help the point that you're making, these are the things that we should ask questions about when these deals actually transpire. And this is why I keep saying, and I'm not going to let it go. We have to now follow the breadcrumbs out just now. We talked about the government moving away from one deal. Again, Dr. Minnis said it this past week and a couple of weeks ago. Governments in this country is supposed to be what? It's supposed to be one constant flow. Administration change, but the governance of the country continues. Okay? So when we watch this process, if there's a deal on the table for you to produce reliable energy, why move away from that deal before you have secured some other deal?
Yeah, but this deal is not about reliable.
Hold on 1 second, let me get this call. Caller, go ahead. You on with the forum?
Hello?
Hey, go ahead.
Yes, good afternoon again to you. You referenced something just now that I believe as a people we haven't given much credit to, that deserves credit, which is Dr. Minnis' administration and Dr. Minnis as a leader in his own right. When Dr. Minnis left office, there were no more fires burning at the dump.
Absolutely.
A legacy problem that we had had. I don't think we've had a fire at the dump since. I've smelled it smoldering recently. However, when Dr. Minnis left office again, there were no load shedding taking place in our country.
Right.
If we remember when those generators were brought in, that we had to shut down the road and the police had to escort those generators.
We talked about that today.
Okay. We had sufficient capacity in terms of power generation. All of a sudden, we have a distribution problem and transmission, not saying that was not an existing challenge. everything wasn't burning down at the point in
Correct.
time. So maybe the management of it was even different or better, or you had more personnel. Because we must also bear in mind we've had voluntary separation packages, I believe, at BPL, where we've lost some of our the intellect that was once there, who have left, and so maybe all of this is a contributing factor to why we're experiencing power generation in this country and transmission. Because recently, I think they said BSG or B, whichever one of them G, who's supposed to own the transmission and distribution, are still waiting to receive the asset.
Yeah.
So all this time, they didn't receive our money and what's up, but they didn't receive the actual hard asset yet that the money is supposed to be spent on.
Absolutely.
This is
You call off a contribution. No, that's the point I keep making, and to help the point the caller was making, it was 132 megawatt. That is what the power plant was supposed to produce. That is what meant. And again, I am not gonna hold water for the FNM. I'm not gonna hold water for the former prime minister. I'm gonna call a spade a spade. I'm gonna put right way right should be. I'm gonna call a good investment a good investment. The caller brought up the dump. I didn't even want to get into the dump. That's something I'm also going to give him credit for. It's the same thing with this. I thought the Wärtsilä engines made a difference.
Yeah, but
why would we move away from something that made a difference if we don't have security in which you're moving to? We have to think.
Okay.
Administration country should be successive. Go ahead.
Yeah, if ministers wanna be honest with himself, he know that they play games. All right. Governments play games a lot. That's why you remember back in Hubert Stop Review and Cancel thing happened. There was nothing never straight flowing about anything.
No, I agree there. And that's why I'm saying I'm not here to carry water. I'm not here to tout the horn. I'm not. Please, all of it is people who have my number. Please don't text me after the show telling me, "Oh, thank you for that time."
Yeah.
No, I could put right way right is, and I could give credit where credit is deserved. And I thought at that time, what was done with those Wärtsilä engines, all the pump, all the pageantry, all the road stops. I remember I was a reporter at that time, and I always tell the story. I can remember going back to when they brought them in. We had to go down to the port.
I remember the road block up.
We watched him get loaded up. Desmond Manister was the minister of works at the time. I watched the generators get loaded on the back of the flatbed. The flatbed had to drive down, and we drove that all the way down to Clifton. They were installed.
Hold on. Stick it right there, because that's right now. That's the past. We don't know if that 130 megawatts would have last for now, because there's
it wouldn't have last. It wouldn't have last. But what we have right now, we've moved from a process where we produced enough generation to a point now where we're not producing enough generation, to the caller's point, to transmission, to distribution. That is now faulty. So it would not have last, but it was something that you could have built off of.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I want. I want to stick up.
All right, so I'm gonna say something that might make some Bahamians angry, right? That is, Bahamians needs to actually stop wondering whether if BPL is broken or asking if it's broken, rather than now they just need to find you have an idea, or just put this question to yourself: who problem it is to fix it right now? Do you think that the minister should resign or not? Come call and let us hear your opinion on this.
Well, you really sticking to this
yes, because she's dropped the ball, and she has been giving the public so much misinformation at every chance she get, and she have not yet to apologize.
Yeah. So I don't think at this point, I don't think our apology suffices. I think we have to get to the point where, as you call, we need to figure out a way forward.
Yes.
We need to figure out a solution. We need to figure out how we get to resolve these matters that have been long-standing. But we're going to take a quick break. And after this break, when we come back, we're going to jump into the solution room, and we're going to get all of those points from callers, and we're going to go into the process of how we think we could, resolve these issues. We're going to take it to a break right now. You're going to hear Ready, Set, Go. That's featuring Big Boy, also off the album. When we come back from the break, go ahead, Simba.
At Star General, you can go gold. Comprehensive car insurance covers loss or damage from accidents, fire, theft, and third-party liability. But the Gold package gives you increased coverage for rental car and windscreen, personal accident, medical benefits, deductible waiver, and 24-hour roadside assistance where available. Our Star General Gold package also gives you up to $2,500 for accidental damage to a rental car anywhere in the Bahamas. Go gold with Star General. Insurance made simple.
Joe bringing these knives to school. He could do Junior in. For what? Well, he fooled with Joe girl.
Mother sick. And you know Junior don't back down for nothing. So that means he got a big fight tomorrow.
So whose side you on?
Side? I trying to stay in school, not Simpson Pen. We gotta tell somebody about this fight.
Tell somebody? I ain't no snitch. I mean cool, you know.
Wait, if you so cool, then you need to stay in school and stay out of the fight.
Yeah, but if I don't hang on Joe's side, any boys coming for me next.
All right, so we definitely gotta tell somebody.
I don't want nobody call me snitch.
We could just call Crime Stoppers. You could report what you know, and nobody gotta know it's you.
So how did I boy?
All you gotta do is call them, or you text them through the Crack Crime Bahamas app, and nobody can know it's you.
Then the police come looking for me for more info, and when they finish with them, Joe them coming looking for me?
When you call Crime Stoppers, the calls go directly to Miami, and they don't ask nothing about you. Then you can get the pen from them, and you can claim a reward later using that same pen.
Plus, everything's scrambled, so nobody can read what you're saying.
Call 328-8477 from Nassau or 242-300-8477 from the Family Islands.
You try to rest, but roll with the best. For all your printing needs, there ain't no one better, no. For posters and banners, magazines and flyers. For window decals, greeting cards and newsletters. No job too big and there's no job too small. You name it, we can print it. Just give us a call. Let peace to life.
Located in the Nassau Guardian Building, telephone 302-2361.
This is Guardian Radio 96.9 FM, streaming on GuardianTalkRadio.com and the Guardian Radio app, Nassau, Bahamas.
Welcome back to the forum. Such an eventful day. Trying to figure out what's going on with the text line. Usually by now we used to be loaded up with all the negative energy, but we can wait that out today. But this is my favorite part of the show. When I put the concept of the show together, this is something I really wanted to deliver. I don't want us to ever get out on these radio airways and just start to bash people, to just, fire at people, to just, try to throw people under the bus. I believe that as a society, we have to get into a space where when we castigate the government, when we, throw stones at the government, that we should also throw solutions as well. We all have an active role to play in this society, and in fact, in any society, in any independent nation that you see around the world, it takes engaged citizens to, make things move. It takes to help those countries, those communities advance, and that is why I put the solution room on this exact spot. We've spent all day talking about the issues, but let's now try to deep dive to see ways that we could resolve the issues. And from my standpoint, the first thing I need, right off bat, I need a full disclosure into the ownership structure of the Bahamas Grid Company. That's first and foremost. I need full disclosure. I need everybody who's involved, every small entity that's involved, where those shareholders, who are the shareholders, what amount of shares is going to different groups, different smaller companies, past and present. Whether they in the deal now, or they out of the deal, or they was in the deal before, past and present. I need the terms of transfer between all those groups.
Here is why that's important. Simply because the Bahamas Grid is out, right? They're the 60% shareholders, so how can we say that they're out? Have they forfeited?
Pike, that is. Pike. Yes.
Okay, well, Pike is the main person that, the company that come and reform the Bahamas Grid Company.
Yeah.
And these are the small groups.
Yeah.
But so they're the head. So if you cut the head off the snake, where the Bahamian people lie, the 60% shareholder, what happened to that? Have they forfeited it?
Yeah.
We the reason why we need the agreement and what has been put in place, if they did not see this through, we need to know what the consequences are. Who's gonna get the preference of buying that 60% shares back?
Yeah.
If they forfeited on their agreement.
Right.
So that's very important what you just say.
Yeah. And then the second thing I'm calling for, and this is just as important, I want an independent, and I repeat, independent audit of all accounting of the $130 million that was associated with this project and the billions of dollars that the government has talked about in Parliament in terms of what it would take to repair the existing in the BPL deal. I want a full audit of that. I want to know every aspect of that. I want to know where you get the number to tell me there's how much BPL have in debt. I want to know how you determined that it was $130 million for the transfer. I need to know all of that. Caller, go ahead. You're on the forum.
Yes, sir. Say the word.
Good day.
You know all the transparency people up in for? I ain't about that. I about why you privatizing
Good question.
You understand? In Finland, that's why it would make Finland so different, from these PLB today. I know who they are.
Right.
You understand me? Finland is buying things. He wasn't privatizing nothing. Finland was buying hotels, making them public. Finland would have never sold Batelco. We would have never sold BPL. None. You understand me? What we doing is we dealing with that progress. See what the PLP did, they swing it with that thing. What do they call it, progress? Everywhere you go, you're progressing in a particular direction. These people are conservative, we're progressing in a conservative direction.
Right.
Privatizing public assets. You see, so transparency, that ain't, you understand me? You understand me? And see, okay, look at the situation. He ain't no way a private entity could raise more money than the government. No way. That's why people buy government bonds. Nothing safer than them. Government share. Come on now. So how why is it profitable for private and better for and we don't own it. Mm-hmm. We own it. The public own this stuff. And we whatever we buying from it, comes back to us. We still own it.
Right.
So when you privatize it, the profit doesn't come to us.
So,
you understand me?
So caller,
private individuals.
Caller, I want you to also think about this, right? The fact that we did own it and then made an attempt to privatize it. And now, today, presently, we have an article out making a big, bold statement that the Bahamians are fully run and operated by Bahamians. What does that do for us as Bahamians, knowing that in the beginning, we fully owned the thing?
See, if 100 Bahamians own it, if 1,000 Bahamians own it, it still isn't profited Bahamians. That's still not right. Yeah. You understand what I'm saying? It could be 10,000 of them. It's supposed to be the whole 300,000 Bahamians who own this thing, man.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? That's what you call a conservatism.
Yeah.
You see? So the PLP, they need to go back. Finland had its issues. But Finland wasn't taking your assets from the masses, no assets from the masses. He's taking assets from the rich man, if anything.
Yeah, thanks for calling, man. But it's about legacy, though.
Thank you for your contribution, caller. Just again, going through the points that we have in the solution room today. Like I said, I want a full independent audit. I want a full accounting of the $130 million associated with this project. And I want us to have a full understanding of that $1 billion number that was cited in Parliament that combined both the debt of BPL and the investment it would take to improve our grid and generation issues. The next thing I want is a public timeline on the passing or the debt of Cody Castillo. And I want you to hear me out carefully with this. The reason I want a full timeline on this, well, I shouldn't say a timeline on his passing. I want a timeline of the ownership transition and how that corresponded with what happened to Mr. Castillo. Because from my standpoint, what I believe happened is after the tragic situation, I feel like when the Pike Group indicated that they were pulling out, I feel like that's when the decision was quickly moved to transition to this Bahamian-led team. I am not saying that was not in the works. I'm not saying that it wasn't planned for a long-term transition at some point, but it seemed and it looked suspicious on the surface that shortly after the situation happened and Pike pulled out, that now all of a sudden we're back to triumphant, like you said, this Bahamian-led, team.
Yeah.
I want a full timeline on that. As a part of that, I also want a formal investigation, whether it's parliamentary or it's independent. If we need to get a couple of people before a board to answer these questions into the possible enrichment. Anybody associated with this deal, whether it's political, adjacent to politicians, whoever, I want to enrich by any of these deals associated with BPL. I want a full investigation into it. And if it's found out that anybody was enriched by this, I want corruption charges brought. Because there's no way in the world you can tell me in this country our people are suffering to this degree, and you have people that may be a part of this process that is walking us through these deals simply to enrich themselves. I need proper charges to be brought of that. But the other thing that I want to see happen, I want to see real compensation for Bahamian people who are being traumatized by this entire process. We hear the complaints, we hear persons saying, hey, without the power, I talked about it earlier, people with medical issues, they are suffering. You have businesses, food businesses, so on and so forth, who are going through loss revenue. I need Bahamian businesses and Bahamian homeowners, I need Bahamian citizens to be properly compensated because of these situations. Not the $8.50-something that JM is carrying on about a couple of days ago. I need Bahamian people to be properly compensated for their loss due to the negligence. And we need to use that word key. This is borderlining on negligence by the government. We've been going through this process far too long for us to continue to pretend like it's not an issue. Right now, the government is being negligent as it relates to power generation in this country. And then last, I want a parallel independent review from IRCA. Calling on IRCA. I have some friends over at IRCA. I want an independent review from you guys. And these things have to be done. If we want to talk about us holding our government's feet to the fire, this is what we're talking about. We need investigations to happen because there's no way in the world we can sit down every single day and pretend like these situations aren't tragic, aren't problematic in our country. We are the people suffering. So please, opposition, any member of opposition, whether it's Mr. Pintard, Mr. Rick Fox, Mr. Andre Rollins, anybody out there listening, these are the kind of things that we as the BM people need you to go into the House of Assembly whenever y'all come back from summer break. It's got to be the longest summer recess I ever see in Parliament in my life. But whenever y'all get back to that good house, I need y'all to get into that good house and get these things done. We need disclosures of the ownership. We need to know who is part owner, who Annie is the owner, who Uncle is the owner. We need to know who's a part of the ownership group. We need to have independent audit of these accounts related to this project. We need to see if anybody has been enriched by these deals. And then we also need to bring corruption charges if we know persons or we find out the persons have been enriched. These are the things that we need to have addressed immediately. Go ahead, Jason.
Okay, so this year you're asking who's gonna bring all of these answers? Who's gonna present all of these tall asking of you right now? Who's gonna do that?
This is where the opposition comes in. And beyond opposition, any political body. I know OG is agitated. I know OG has approached the government on a couple of these issues related to disclosures and so on. I want OG to continue their job. But the onus I'm placing at the feet of the opposition.
Yeah.
The onus I'm placing at the feet of Mr. Michael Pintard.
So I'm going to put this out there, and this is just for the public's information, right? We have the Commissioner of Police. The Commissioner of Police is not under anyone control, okay? Yeah. There's no politician control them. They have the answer to none of them, okay? So at any given time, the Commissioner of Police, she decides that some wrongdoing was done, someone was benefiting, and some answers need to be given. She could act at any given time without being in fear of reprimanded or being demoted in any type of way. Okay, so it actually the Governor General, the Commissioner of Police, the Attorney General as well. They don't necessarily answer to the politician, as per se.
Yeah.
But we know how this whole buddy system go and how everything works.
Right.
So if they don't know, I'm just letting the public know that they are fully independent to act and keep up in accordance with the law. Okay.
I like the way you played it just now. I gotta give you credit for that. The use of the phrase buddy system. In short, I can say it like this. This ain't the time for friend. This ain't the time for hand come, hand go. This is time for us to be serious about things in this country. We have a serious issue playing out right now in our country when it comes to electricity generation. We need to resolve this issue once and for all. And I need persons to understand that the only way that we can address these matters is if the person's in these positions of power. You talk about the Commissioner of Police, talk about these sorts of entities and bodies, the Public Accounts Committee, these sorts of government bodies that could go in there and launch these investigations. Now is the time. Because the only way we could just sit back and just constantly ask the question, well, why BEC? Why BPL this bad? And I go back to the point I made to open the show. A failure is a failure. I don't care if you try to stand up and tell me it's progress. I could see a failure. Present state has failed the country.
Yeah.
Somebody has to be held accountable.
But I want to give this current administration kudos, simply because what they've done.
I didn't expect that.
The reason why I'm gonna do that is because they've done something like awesome, amazing. They actually market a belief. They market a belief, and the people actually buy into it.
Right.
Okay. And that's why so many people kicking themselves right now. But I honestly believe that the PLP can actually turn this thing around. They can actually turn this thing around, because the way they are right now, they just have to be honest with themselves that, they didn't have all of the answers. Just stop putting on a facade for the people and ask the hard questions. How do we get from here? Bring in the professionals that you needed. I know this. I'm passionate about this BPL situation because this, like the caller, we own this. The people own this. We let our telecommunication get away from us because they feel like it wasn't important for us to own our own secrets, our country secrets. But with BPL, when you ask who is the benefit, there are persons that you want to know who's benefiting personally. I when I sum it all up, I think, I'm not going to call anyone names or anything like that, but I just think this is not really about getting it right the first go around. I just think this repositioning legacy, repositioning legacy. That's why we have a group of behemoths right now saying that we fully run this. What does that means for us, right? So 25 years from now, when the country fully be given over to whoever is going to take it over if we don't change course.
Oh Lord.
What is going to be said is that you can't take this because we got ownership of this, which is BPL. All right? So understand what I'm saying, people. This here is not to get it right. This here is to transfer legacy right now. And then they're going to get it right.
But see, that's your position. That's your belief.
Yeah, it's only me, my opinion. Everyone, yeah. So I don't have to be right. So anyone, if you work for BPL in the past and you know anything, because time after time I have people just send me messages, just send me, information. And I'm going to go on social media and say anything about it or whatever, And sometimes I just choose not to.
Right.
Someone messaged me the other day, hey, Jason, what is your take on BPL? And I was like, from 2 years ago, for the past 2 years, I was putting it out there. There were people that send me messages and say, oh, you're lying. You'll never think nothing good about the Bahamas, And then I screenshot all of this information from the Tribune and what was been put it out there and stuff like that. And I sent it. Or they make that up. Well, the Bahamian government wouldn't do us like this.
Yeah.
You understand? So.
Oh, and I really think that's one of the biggest things. And you talked about the marketing, the communications that the progressive body has done, particularly in their process to be reelected. And when I first started the show a couple of weeks ago, and we talked about coming off of the heels of a general election, that's one of the things I pointed out, that I've never seen a party be so effective in its messaging.
Yes.
And because they've been so effective, it kind of lulls a lot of persons into a position where they believe that they're informed, but they aren't seeing the reality of things.
Correct.
I've been in a situation you've been in where, like, I come on radio and people hit me up throughout the week, or they see me somewhere and they be like, Ricardo, I can't believe this going on because it looks so good. I can't believe we back to this because when they come in, I remember all of the pomp and pageantry about this and that, and I thought we had this issue resolved. And it's shocking to them because they can't see the full picture. Like, you call it a shift in legacy. I have my own beliefs when it comes to that. I believe it's more so a situation, and I told you this off air, and I'm going to say it on air. A lot of times we forget in politics in this country that it is that hand come, hand go. We forget in this country They assist these political parties, whether it's through donations, whether it's through support, whether it's through whatever. And they do that with the belief that once my party gets in or once my group gets in, that I am going to benefit. And when they do it like that, that's just the one or two little people. You ain't talking about the big companies. You ain't talking about the big special interests. You ain't talking about these big corporations with billions of dollars that back these political parties to act a certain way, to do a certain thing. So when they get into power, they could benefit financially. So you talk about it as a legacy. From my standpoint, it's the belief that I could buy into political favor. And that, how does that political favor work out for me? We sometimes see people in positions that they should not be in.
Correct.
We sometimes see companies or entities that are just made up to execute a particular deal that don't really service the Bahamian people. You see these big deals for 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 million dollars. And when you really look into it, you say, well, hey, the project that you had them working on, I feel like somebody else over there could have do that for less. And you say to yourself, I wonder why that was the case. Han come, han go.
Yeah, and hence why I made the statement earlier, right? I made the statement earlier that the minister should resign, but in all truth and fairness, what do people think? Because I know the prime minister wouldn't say, step down,
Oh, we ain't in a culture where the prime ministers look at any one of his ministers and say, boy, you all failing.
But then the people of and said, Minister, we believe in you, and we know. Remember, she had a song saying, Joe Bad is the only one, or something like. It's very catching. So right now, you're not really suitable for the role. And Carter, you just explained something important, that they put people in roles that they really cannot really execute.
Right.
And maybe your hands are tied. I don't know.
Yeah.
But she is there.
She's the face.
She is the face.
She's the face.
All right.
And this is why I always like to say, when we get into the politics conversation, you have to understand something. You could have somebody like a Dwayne Sands who's been, and I'm going to bring it up because we talked about him earlier today, who's been a doctor all his life. He's a celebrated cardiologist in this region. And once in a while, you would have a situation where somebody who's in their private life, capable of a task, that then comes to public life and be able to serve even more. So you have these rare occasions where a doctor is able to serve as Minister of Health. You have these rare occasions when somebody who's an environmentalist is able to serve as the environment minister.
Yeah.
You have somebody who's been in energy production, energy creation, who's then able to serve as Minister of Energy. Somebody who is in the construction industry, who's then able to serve in the capacity of Minister of Works.
But believe it or not, there was one time it was alleged that there was a chef, a culinary major, that was a head of BPL at one point.
But I say you have these circumstances and these rare occasions when that happens. But most of the time, you have a situation where somebody who could be a chef could enter public life, run for office, and they could become, I don't know, prime minister. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But that's where it is that we should rely on experts in these fields to do the job that we pay them to do. As a minister, you are only a face. You're only taking the information and trying to bring it together to bring solutions to the people that brought you to office. And I think oftentimes we have these ministers that they walk into certain spaces and they believe that they become the expert in these spaces. Yeah. And I want to read a quick text right now because I feel like this is in large part the situation that we're dealing with. The average PLP social media trolls are dictating this to this lousy administration as to who they should fire and hire. This administration is a big disgrace and a joke. Prime Minister Davis should be ashamed of himself. That's the text. And I'm glad that texted now because I had something else I wanted to say earlier in the show. I'll be mentioning it in the stories.
Yeah, but here's what I want every Bahamian to understand. Even though that you do not like Dylan things, we have to understand this is our Bahamas. This is our only one Bahamas, right? So like, just as we've been asking you to call in with solution, we don't just want to just focus on the problem, We want some good thinking Bahamians that can come up with solution, but the only way we can do that, we come up with good thinking Bahamians to put their solutions is by knowing what's the ramification around these deals that has been made. Yeah. All of the things that you've been asking for. The only way we could solve a problem or issue if we have this information.
Right. So we want to take the time right now to jump into our final break, and when we come back, we want to wrap up the show. So if you have any more texts and calls to get in, now is the time to do that. But we're going to jump into this commercial break. We'll be right back.
The method of the bullet, freedom of some shit. When we ever do a deal, we just keep settling for lip. We ain't gon' have some bread, but none of us are bakers. We all talk having grains, but none of us own acres. If none of us own acres, and none of us grow wheat, then who will feed our people when our people need to eat?
Running low on summer funds? Squeeze every drop of fun out of your summer with a Fidelity personal loan. From backyard upgrades to family getaways, Fidelity is here to help. Call 356-7764 today.
Fidelity, we're good for you.
Headed to South Florida soon? Holiday Inn Express in Plantation welcomes you to the heartbeat of Florida fun. Whether it's business or pleasure, the Holiday Inn Express is close to sensational shopping, captivating dining, and nightlife. Elevate your Florida experience. Sleep well and rest easy at Holiday Inn Express. Complimentary breakfast buffet featuring seasonal favorites. Keep up your fitness routine in our 24-hour on-site fitness center with cardio equipment and free weights, or take a refreshing swim in our outdoor pool. Holiday Inn Express, 1701 North University Drive, in Plantation. Book your getaway now. Call directly at 954-472-5600 or the sales department for reservations and additional information.
Always on the go? Missed the show? You can now listen to Guardian Radio talk shows anytime, anywhere on Spotify and YouTube by searching Guardian Radio 96.9 FM or by entering the name of your favorite show. You can also listen by logging on to GuardianTalkRadio.com and clicking on the podcast tab. Guardian Radio, continuing to provide you with fresh news and smart talk anywhere, anytime, all day.
This is Guardian Radio 96.9 FM, streaming on GuardianTalkRadio.com and the Guardian Radio app, Nassau, Bahamas.
Welcome back to the forum. We're in the final 15 right now, but to wrap up the show, it's been weeks trying to get to the bottom of, how we got to this point with what we are now able to firmly say is a failed power grid, a failed energy system. And I got a text just now on my personal line telling me you got to go easy on Joe Bet. I won't go easy on Joe Bet. I understand the nature of politics. I'm never going to pretend like I don't. She is in a role. She's playing a role as a part of this government. This is not a personal attack on her. This is an attack on the Minister of Energy. We need more from our Minister of Energy. And if she is not able to cut it, I am able to say we should cut her. We should have somebody new step in with new ideas. That is what this is all about. And I keep telling Bahamian people, stop getting into this Bahamianized model of what politics should be. Look at other countries that have Westminster systems. If there's a minister that fails, you know what happened? It's a resignation. Look at our friends over across the pond, our great, I don't want to say it, but that's what some people, let's call it the motherland, Great Britain. Look at them. Every 2 weeks you see a prime minister resigning because they can't get the job done. And if they can't get the job done, you know what they do? They step aside. I always just say, with the issues that we deal with in the Bahamas, any place else, heads would roll. Heads would roll because they know they are answerable to their citizens. They can't get the job done, they need to back aside. So that's why we opened the show today with the statement that we did and not our usual poem. We like our poetry over here, we like our rap music over here. But we opened the day with a statement. A failure is a failure. And we said at that time, a failure is a failure even if somebody stand at a podium and tell us it's progress. We know a failure when we see it. We know when a problem is a problem. Let's not pretend. We now need to take the situation as this matter. So I want to sit with that one more time, and I want persons to understand that just like me, I know you too are seeing what is happening with BPL, and you know that we deserve better, you know that we deserve more. It doesn't stop being a failure because somebody stood behind a podium and called it progress. The light's going out right now. Somewhere in the Bahamas right now. Somewhere in Nassau. Somebody power might be off right now. I hope when I get home, it ain't my power.
I vote for progress.
I pray right now it ain't my power. But if you power out right now, I'm so sorry to hear that. But somewhere right now, somebody power off. And that's not something we can control yet. We talked about that all day during the show. How that money was moved for the ownership of that grid. We talked about that during the show. And whether anybody get rich while the rest of us sat back in the dark, we talked about that during the show. Those are the things we can demand change on.
Yeah, so real quick, right? In terms of ownership transfer and stuff like that. Okay, Bahamian people, look at this. BPL itself, the entity, it's about 1.1 billion in asset. Right? So when it was cheaply, being bought or however it was distributed among special interest group, what I want the workers to know, the workers who is about to retire probably in the next 6 months, probably next 2 or 3 years from now, I want you to ask this current minister, because she is attached to this as well. What is going to happen to your pension? What is going to happen to, I don't know if you guys have health care and other stuff, other benefits that you normally get from BPL or whatever. But I need you to ask these questions. What is going to happen? Because inside this deal, it didn't say that BPL was also transferred.
I think that's summed up in the debt that the Prime Minister talked about. That the Prime Minister talked about.
But it was not clear.
Well, nothing is going to be clear. And that's the point I want us to understand about this whole BPL thing. If you're searching for clarity, this ain't the issue to talk about.
Yeah, but if you work for BPL and you about to retire sometime soon, these are questions that you need to have asked, answered. Yeah. And just call in and speak about it, because this is not going away. This is not going away.
Yeah.
The electricity generation is going to get better. It's going to get better, people. I want you to know it's going to get better. Yeah. All right. But the deal around this, whoever is affected is going to be scarred for life. Yeah. I want y'all to know that.
Yeah. So I know ahead of the show you reached out to me. You had a particular situation that transpired related to you, and you wanted to get this off your chest. You wanted to address it. Now let me just preface this by saying, hey, we know the country we live in. We know the issues that we face. We know immigration is a big deal. We know that we have a country that we need to put in order. I can let you take it from there.
So okay, my issue is just an issue, but it isn't that I'm against foreigners in any type of way having ownership or having a part of our land or the Bahamian inheritance. It's just that we need to rethink the way permanent residents have the rights to benefit. The only thing they don't benefit is voting and stuff like that, and I'm sure they don't care about that. But once you become a permanent resident, and those of you who are permanent residents, if you didn't know, you have all access to everything that Bahamian has access to, other than voting in this country. So if you married someone for money, after 3 or 4 years and you actually got a permanent resident, right now you could own land, own businesses. And as we see because there was a situation where yesterday I actually went out Montague and I went, me and a friend, we went to go get some comforters, and daiquiris, and you have like the prices are so high for 10 comforters, $10, the lady told me that is $16 for daiquiri, and I said, it's evening, the tourists already gone. When are you going to bring out the Bahamian price? And she looked at me cold in the eye, because they are all foreigners. But permanent resident people who doing business. And she said, if you don't like it, go somewhere else. And I said, what? So yeah, go somewhere else.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to figure out, right? See, because if we have a culture, whether it's Kong salad or whatever that we call our culture today, I know the diversification is coming along, but we have to protect our culture somehow. And we cannot have people, imposters, I would call them. We cannot have them like marketing our product and wrongfully representing us, misrepresenting us. I went out to Fish Fry the other day and I went to get some Bahamian food by a particular restaurant that is not of Bahamians, by nature or core.
I've seen a lot of complaints.
Backing it up and they're doing all kind of things and saying this is Bahamian. Like we got I don't know who's in charge of that. I don't know if there's any thing that culture can do.
All right.
or teach these people, okay, you're going to embark, like, because anything us as Bahamians we have to do, Ricardo, Bahama Host is there for us, right? They teach Bahamians how to carry out the. So why you have permanent residents who want to betray Bahamians and the carrying out of their product? Why you can't put them through that?
Yeah. So I wouldn't even use the phrase portray Bahamians. I would use the phrase represent the Bahamas. Like we are tourists, we are a tourism country. We are a destination that relies on tourism. I say that to say this. We have to have standards when it comes to delivering this product.
Yes.
Okay, and I when you told me about the situation, I had to do my due diligence, make a couple of calls. I forget that store was out on Montague, and I asked a couple of people, and it's like, oh yeah, this person took it over, da 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 da. And I was like, okay, that's cool, but you know, this is my person telling us like this work out, and it was like, oh no, it became like and the person said this exact word to me. From the setup became like a tourist trap where you had taxi drivers that brought tourists directly to Montague to do the little fort tour, to do all of that. Prices went through the roof.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? And I was like, yeah, because I remember back in the day, like when I was younger, my daddy used to take me out to Montague, and that was a normal stop, and you could get your little coconut water. He would get his little, gully wash sky juice. He would, and it was equally parts for the foreigner and Bahamians.
Yeah.
There was no idea of, hey, because tourists are now coming here, we're going to drive these prices up. These are the sorts of things that and I'm not against persons running their business to make a profit. I'm not against persons doing what it takes to survive. But at the same time, you have to understand that when you do this, you put the perception out there that, yeah, that ain't a good spot for me to do. So now you're making tourists look at the situation a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just call caution in that regard. I'm not saying that, the business needs to be, no, I'm just saying I'm reaching out to the operators of that business. Even if you could do a little small size, something that, everybody could afford. And like you said, the tourists didn't go and you could bring the price back down a little bit.
Bring it back down.
You see what I'm saying? So I could agree to things like that. To your point about fish fry, this is something I've long been on. I'm not against any foreigner moving into the cultural space. But when you represent the Bahamian culture, do it authentically. Do it authentically, because we only got one good name left.
Yes.
And this is no criticism to any other nationality, any other race. If you could do something and you could put the stamp tag on it in the Bahamas, by Bahamians, if you put any of them tags on it.
Who's that called?
I ain't call shots because I like the work she's doing. The Honorable Leslie Bryce, MP for Seabreeze, I think she's doing a tremendous job. All I'm saying is, in that regard, let's ensure that if these people can use the tag Bahamian or by Bahamian or for, make sure that we're doing it authentically.
Do you know what is the Bahamian product?
If I know.
What is the Bahamian product?
Yeah,
What is it? The people.
Yes.
All right, so the people represent the country. The country represent its people.
I agree, but I'm also going to say this. I feel in some instances, you can have persons that work in this industry.
Get them out if they're not
misrepresenting. If they're misrepresenting. I'm going to say that absolutely. If they're going to misrepresent, if they're going to try to devalue the brand of the Bahamas in any way, whether it's Bahamian or non-Bahamian, anybody is out there devaluing the brand of the Bahamas and they're doing it to the point that it's detrimental to our economy and our tourism model, get them out of there.
And by the way, I want you to know that I've actually just finished this week. I've just finished a Bahama host training. And there's no way in that they tell us to tell our customer, if you don't like our price, go somewhere else.
Yeah.
I said, what you say? Go somewhere else.
Yeah. But hey, this is where we are. It's been a really good, tremendous show today, guys. We got to the bottom of the BPL thing. We had the opportunity to discuss it. Again, when I first came up with the concept of the forum, this is what this show is all about. I wanted to bring voices from all over the land, all over the culture, all over our society, whether it's social media voices like yourself, whether it's political voices like we're going to have on over the next couple of weeks. I wanted to bring these voices together to have these discussions. So if you want to be a part of our conversation, whether it's via phone call or whether it's via text message, or in some instances, if you want to be a guest, reach out. My numbers are active. You can reach me at 449-997-1360. Repeating again, 449-9949 or 827-1360. Or you can reach me via email. Full name, ricardowells.ca@gmail.com. If you want to be a guest, if you want to partner with me in any which way, I want this to be a product that allows persons to come together and help move this country forward. That was the brain trust behind the forum. And again, it's been a tremendous Saturday. I want to thank you, Jason, for joining me today. And I want to thank you to the listeners. Thank you for joining this conversation.
And real quick, so you don't toot your own horn, for the listening audience, I want you to also to take part and listen every Saturday morning from 11 a.m. to 1. Because what Ricardo does is something different. He look at everything he do and come from an educational standpoint, where he can fill you up with back history up to now, day and time. All right, so it's just not bashing or saying, just speaking from opinion or how you feel.
Yeah.
It comes from factual base, a time in history then until now, and the persons that chime in, it make it a lot easier for them to pick apart and get a better understanding. All right. So I just thank you for that, and I love the fact that you did that.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you again for joining me. Until next week, ladies and gentlemen, I'll see you back here. This was the Forum. Thank you.
2 months ago, I told the American people I did not trade arms for hostages. My heart and my best